Previously, Logan embarking on a quest to uncover his past. He seeks to discover who wiped his memories and transformed his body into a lethal weapon. In the thrilling opening of the film, we meet Nightcrawler, a mutant with blue skin, who also has a strong Catholic faith. He attempted to assassinate US President McKenna in the Oval Office using his teleportation powers, but it didn't go as planned. Disguised as a member of a White House tour, he broke away from the group to launch his attack, utilizing his incredibly fast teleportation. Just as he was about to stab the president with a knife labeled, "Mutant Freedom Now," a wounded guard shot him in the arm, forcing him to flee. The next scene takes place at Alkali Lake, which is controlled by a large dam. Here, Logan reappears and encounters a solitary white wolf. He discovers only the frozen base and the abandoned remains of the Alkali Lake Industrial Complex as he searches for clues about his origins. Meanwhile, Mutant Storm, Dr. Jean Grey, and Cyclops are leading a field trip for young superhero mutants from Professor Charles Xavier's X-Mansion School for Gifted Youngsters in Westchester County, New York, to the Natural History Museum in New York. Jean has a feeling that something bad is about to happen. In the museum's food court, Pyro/John Allardyce gets into a fight with some bullying non-mutant teens, which results in a fire that Bobby puts out with his icy breath. Professor Xavier appears after freezing the scene to give a lesson about the dangers of showing off in public. A TV news report covers the recent attack on the president at the White House, wrongly suggesting that it involved one or more mutants. It remains uncertain if Magneto, the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants, orchestrated the attack from his plastic prison cell. Meanwhile, Professor Xavier is using his Cerebro machine to track the erratic movements of the assassin before the authorities can catch him. In the Oval Office, the president had a meeting with Colonel William Stryker, a retired military scientist and a power-hungry covert government agent whose main goal was to eliminate all mutants on Earth. Also present was Senator Robert Kelly, who held anti-mutant views and had backed the Mutant Registration Act that aimed to end peaceful coexistence. Kelly's objections to Stryker's aggressive plans were ignored. Stryker believed the X-School was a front for mutant activities, showing surveillance photos that depicted a jet parked beneath the basketball court. He mentioned that he had gathered some of his intel from a mutant terrorist captured on Liberty Island. Accompanying him was his assistant Yuriko Oyama, known as Lady Deathstrike, who was an assassin and martial artist. In the hallway, the mutant Mystique with yellow eyes revealed that she was pretending to be Kelly. Logan, who had lost his memory, returned to the school after searching in the north to learn more about his troubled past. He was asked to look after the students while Jean and Storm were sent to Boston by Professor Xavier to find the assassin. Stryker and his guard went to see Magneto, the mutant leader, in his plastic prison. After the guard hit Magneto, Stryker applied a chemical serum to the back of his neck to control him and extract information about Cerebro. Meanwhile, Professor Xavier was showing Logan his powerful Cerebro machine, explaining how it could connect him to every living being on the planet, including mutants. The white lights represented humans, while the red lights indicated mutants. It could also assist in locating the assassin. Wolverine requested the professor to read his mind again for more details about his past, including his amnesia and adamantium skeleton, but Xavier said he couldn't do that, as the mind needs to uncover things on its own. Disguised as Senator Kelly and then as Yuriko Oyama, the blue-scaled Mystique infiltrated Colonel Stryker's computers in his Washington, D.C. offices to gather more information on Eric Lensher, the prison and its guards. She also started examining confidential data on Cerebro. She discovered that he was planning to create another Cerebro called Cerebro 2, but the location of the base and construction site was classified. When the real Yuriko arrived at the offices, she pretended to be the nighttime cleaning janitor to escape. After flying to Boston in the X-Jet, Storm and Jean found the fast-moving, teleporting German-speaking assassin Nightcrawler in an empty cathedral. After they subdued him with their powers, they realized he had been forced into this situation. He had the same mark on the back of his neck that allowed Stryker to control Magneto. Meanwhile, Scott/Cyclops and Professor Xavier were visiting Magneto in his plastic prison, where Magneto disclosed that frequent visitor Stryker had been interrogating him. He also mentioned that Stryker's mutant son Jason had once been a student at Xavier's school. Magneto admitted to Xavier's shock that he couldn't help but tell Stryker everything. Just as Magneto said, the war has begun. An invisible gas was released into the prison chamber, causing both of them to lose consciousness. Outside the cell, Cyclops battled the prison guards but was knocked out by Stryker's powerful assistant, Yurikoike Deathstrike. Xavier and Cyclops were taken by Stryker and Deathstrike. Meanwhile, Xavier's school was attacked by helicopters and soldiers led by Stryker, while Wolverine helped the mutant students defend themselves with their powers in a partially successful counterattack. Some students managed to escape through underground tunnels, but others were captured. Stryker confronted Wolverine directly, suggesting he had experimented on him 15 years ago. To shield Wolverine, Bobby created a thick ice wall between them, abruptly ending their conversation. The remaining mutants and Wolverine then escaped in Cyclops' car, speeding towards Boston, with a stop at Bobby's house to meet Storm and Jean Grey. Stryker's next action was to enter Professor Xavier's Cerebro machine, where he commanded, "Take what we need, gentlemen." In a bar, Mystique, disguised as a seductive woman named Grace, flirted with Magneto's guard, Mitchell Laurio. She drank his beer with knockout pills and later injected him with iron fluid in a men's restroom stall. This was part of the plan to help Magneto escape soon. Later in the film, Laurio brought food to Magneto in his plastic prison. Magneto sensed something in Laurio, levitated him, extracted iron from his body into his hand as a black cloud, and formed small iron ball bearings to break the plastic enclosure for his escape. When Professor Xavier woke up at Alkali Lake, Stryker's headquarters, he realized he was being held captive by Stryker and his assistant, Deathstrike, who was also under the influence of a serum injected into her neck. Xavier wore a metal neural inhibitor on his head to stop him from using his psychic abilities. They discussed Stryker's mutant son, Jason, who had left Xavier's school after just 1 year and blamed his parents for his condition. Jason had used his powerful illusion abilities to make his mother use a power drill on her temple to bore the images out. Without needing to read his thoughts, Xavier realized that Stryker had planned the assassination attempt to sway the president. Acknowledging that the potion he used to control other mutants wouldn't affect Xavier, Stryker brought in his mutant son Jason/Mutant 143 to manipulate Xavier's mind with strong illusions. The sickly, mute boy was brought in on a wheelchair, and shortly after, Jason, who had a strong ability to control minds, transformed himself into a little girl and led the professor into another illusion, the Cerebro Dome. Outside Boston, Bobby's parents were shocked to find Logan and the others in their home. When Bobby told them he was a mutant, they were upset and innocently asked, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" Bobby's younger brother Ronnie called 911 to report intruders, while a TV report mentioned several fugitives from the facility, or school. After the police surrounded the house and ordered Logan to drop his knuckle blades, he replied that he couldn't retract them, and was shot in the forehead, but he quickly healed and survived. Pyro shot fire at the officers and police cars, and then Rogue put out the flames with icy air from Bobby's ankle. The group of mutants was picked up by the X-Jet piloted by Dr. Gray, heading back to the New York Mutant School while being pursued by 2 F-16 Air Force fighters. Storm stopped the chase by creating large swirling tornadoes, and telekinetically skilled Jean redirected one missile off course, but a second missile exploded near the X-Jet, causing damage. Rogue was pulled out of the plane but was saved by Nightcrawler's teleportation. To their surprise, Magneto had temporarily allied with the X-Men. He fixed the hole in the damaged ship and stopped it from crashing. By the light of a campfire at night, he shared how he was fighting against Stryker, who had taken over the school's mansion to get Cerebro or use enough of it to create his own version. The abducted Professor Xavier was to be kept alive and forced to run Cerebro 2, targeting all connected mutants to eliminate them, Stryker's plan for genocide. Stryker also had a special ability to manipulate adamantium, the metal that makes up Wolverine's bones. Mystique had uncovered plans for a base that Stryker had been using for years, where he was constructing the second Cerebro. Jean Grey accessed Nightcrawler's mind to find out the base's location, which was at Alkali Lake. It was an underground facility, the reason Wolverine had not discovered it. The following day, the group flew to Stryker's base, where in the underground bunker, Stryker was holding some of the kidnapped students from the school. When the mutants reached the base, Mystique, transformed into Wolverine, entered the spillway, was allowed in handcuffed, and then fought several guards in her true form before locking herself in the heavily secured control room of the lab. As Stryker tried to blast the doors to get in, the rest of the mutant rescue team managed to enter, except for 3 students who stayed with the jet. Meanwhile, the young girl, Jason, and Professor Xavier entered the Cerebro room, which looked high-tech but was actually just a dirty dome. The group split up, with one team going to rescue the other children in a lower-level containment cell, and the other searching for Professor Xavier in Cerebro. Wolverine had vanished, choosing to search for the lab to uncover the secrets of his past. Inside the Cerebro dome, Stryker commanded Jason, "It's time to find all the mutants," an order for the professor to eliminate all mutants using Cerebro. After being captured earlier, Cyclops was secretly controlled by Stryker through a spot on his neck. Jean saw the distinctive mark and stopped Cyclops from using his powerful optic blasts. She told Magneto and Mystique, "Go, I'll handle him." They fought fiercely, crashing into the machines and walls of the dam until it began to leak and shake, producing loud rumbles. The fight concluded when Cyclops returned to his true self and assisted the injured Jean. Storm and Nightcrawler successfully rescued the children. In the lab, Wolverine reflected on his past through flashbacks, recalling the painful X-rays of his bone structure as adamantium, a special liquid metal, was applied to his skeleton, and how he was repeatedly submerged in water. He remembered his escape and the shock of seeing his claws for the first time. Stryker and Deathstrike confronted Wolverine, with Stryker suggesting that she too had been given adamantium claws and had regenerative powers. In an intense duel to the death, the two battled until Wolverine stabbed her in the stomach with an adamantium nozzle, filling her body with the liquid metal and killing her. In the Cerebro Dome, the professor's strong focus on eliminating mutants started to take effect. Many mutants fell due to a loud humming noise in their heads. Magneto stopped the assault by putting on his helmet and sealing the dome to make it safe. After rearranging the interior tiles of the dome, Mystique, disguised as Stryker, changed Jason's commands, causing Professor Xavier to start targeting all humans instead of mutants. Mystique and Magneto then escaped. Meanwhile, Stryker ran outside to a helicopter while Wolverine followed him, stabbed him, and demanded to know about his past. Stryker tried to negotiate with Wolverine. At that moment, alarm signals sounded from the dam, indicating that it had ruptured and floodwaters would rush onto the spillway to relieve pressure. Furious, Wolverine chained Stryker to the helicopter wheel and went to help his friends. The rescue team approached the Cerebro chamber where Professor Xavier was now focusing on humans. Nightcrawler teleported himself and Storm into the dome, where she freed Professor Xavier from Jason's telepathic illusion by freezing the room. Jason gave in, revealing Xavier, just as the ceiling tiles inside the dome began to fall. Nightcrawler quickly grabbed Storm and then the professor to save them from the collapsing structure, but Jason was left to perish inside the dome. With Wolverine's assistance, the whole group, including the rescued students, escaped the flooding spillway and made it to the snowy outdoors. Meanwhile, Magneto and Mystique found Stryker, incapacitated by the helicopter. To escape Alkali Lake, they flew away after chaining Stryker to the dam's concrete debris, taking Pyro with them. With the helicopter gone, they were rescued by a terrified Rogue, who was unsteadily piloting the spinning X-jet to the helicopter pad for an emergency landing. The vertical thrusters malfunctioned and power issues made it impossible for the X-jet to take off, leaving everyone in a dire situation. As the dam collapsed and the floodwaters surged, Stryker drowned. Jean Grey exited the jet to temporarily hold back the floodwaters with her telekinetic abilities and to lift the X-jet above the torrent. She was surrounded by a glowing orange aura of fire as she sacrificed herself in the overwhelming disaster, saving the others. Everyone was heartbroken and mourned her loss. In Washington, D.C., the president's live speech to the nation regarding a growing threat within our own population from his office was cut off when the lights went out, and storm controlled the forces of nature. Everyone was frozen in place. Except for the president. In front of him stood the mutants and Professor Xavier, who handed him files from Stryker's private offices. He cautioned about the necessity for mutants and humans to coexist peacefully instead of warring against each other, or else both groups would face destruction. The US president was shocked and speechless, unsure of how to proceed with his address when normal conditions resumed. The movie ended with Jean Grey's voiceover, as the camera panned over Alkali Lake. A vague shape of a phoenix hovered above the water.